In a hidden corner among the Swiss mountains, beyond the bustle of ski resorts and precision clocks, there exists a place where time seems to have stopped, where every daily gesture is a form of art, and where life revolves around a forgotten principle: doing things with your hands, with patience and with love. Today we take you to discover the most artisanal village in Switzerland, a place where tradition is not a memory of the past but a living, everyday practice. Here, in this remote and majestic setting, beauty is not displayed in showcases. It is cultivated with effort, with respect for the land, and with a deep human connection passed down through generations. Get ready to step into a life that challenges the rush of the 21st century. Here, nature sets the pace, days are measured in simple, essential tasks, and luxury lies not in having more but in needing less. This is the story of a community that has chosen to preserve authenticity, even if that means facing the harshest seasons, working with their own hands, and upholding a culture that refuses to disappear. An awakening among mountains and wood. Life in the most artisanal village of Switzerland begins before the light itself. While the alpine peaks are still wrapped in bluish shadows and the sun barely hints at its presence behind the snowy summits, a faint glow starts to filter through old glass windows. It is the prelude to a new day, not marked by digital alarms or smartwatches, but by the slow breath of the earth, by the creak of wood under bare footsteps, and by the distant echo of a cowbell that gently breaks the absolute silence of dawn. The air that fills your lungs as you open the front door is pure and sharp, a blend of snow's moisture, fir resin, and chimney smoke. Unlike the thick city air, heavy with constant motion, here every breath feels like a sacred act. It is air that awakens the skin, clears the mind, and instantly reminds you that life in this place is deeply tied to natural rhythms. There is no rush, but neither is there room for carelessness. Before the first rays of sunlight touch the slopes, life is already stirring. Families, many composed of several generations under one roof, divide up tasks that repeat each day with almost choreographed precision. The elders, wrapped in thick layers of wool, head to the stable where the cows wait peacefully. They are greeted with a gentle stroke, a whisper, a gesture learned since childhood. Milking is not just a mechanical act, it is a silent dialogue between human and animal, a ritual filled with respect, trust, and gratitude. Meanwhile, inside the homes, structures that seem to rise from the very earth they stand on, the fire begins to stir beneath the ashes of the night. Cast iron stoves come to life, emitting a dry, comforting heat that spreads through the rooms like a warm embrace. On the stove, a copper pot starts to bubble slowly, heating fresh milk or an herbal infusion made from alpine plants handpicked during the summer. The children, still with sleepy eyes, get dressed in whispers. There are no screens on, no notifications, only the sound of a wooden brush untangling hair, soft footsteps on aged pine floors, and the rustle of fabrics made by their grandmothers. These clothes don't come from stores. Every sweater, every scarf is the result of hours of patient work. There is pride in wearing that wool, spun at home, dyed with natural pigments, and knitted in silence by the warmth of the hearth while snow fell outside. The houses themselves are witnesses of time. No two are exactly alike, but all share a common soul. Built from thick larch logs, a wood that ages with dignity and grows stronger over the years, and local stones gathered from rivers and hillsides, each home is a masterpiece of vernacular architecture. They weren't made to impress but to protect. The sloped roofs are designed so snow doesn't accumulate excessively. The small windows preserve warmth during the coldest months. The carved wooden balconies are used to dry clothes or store medicinal herbs under the summer sun. On the frames of doors and windows, ancient inscriptions and symbols can still be seen. Sun crosses, alpine stars, geometric shapes hand-carved by ancestors. These are not mere decorations. Each symbol holds meaning: to invoke fertility for the crops, to wish health for the livestock, to ward off illness or bless the coming harvest. It is spiritual art embedded in wood, a secret language passed between generations. The first meal of the day is modest, yet full of flavor and energy. Bread baked the night before, spread with freshly churned butter, accompanied by homemade jam or cheese aged in the same cellar where last year's wine is stored. There are no industrial products, no boxed cereals or instant coffee. Every ingredient has passed through the hands of someone known, someone close, someone from the village. Eating here is an act of direct connection with the land, the environment, and the history. As the sun finally begins to crown the Alps and bathes the rooftops in golden light, the entire village breathes in sync. White chimney smoke rises straight into the frozen sky. The roosters crow, the shepherd dogs stretch, and the tools hanging in the sheds begin to change places. It's a new workday, yes, but also a new day of gratitude. Every dawn here is a silent victory over winter, a reaffirmation that life, though harsh, is still deeply beautiful. Because in this village of mountains and wood, waking up is not just opening your eyes, it is stepping once more into a rooted, humble, and profoundly human cycle of life. Nourishing yourself with what you create. In this remote corner of the Swiss Alps, where modernity barely grazes the slopes and haste has no place, eating is not simply a physiological need, it is a daily ceremony, a manifestation of ancestral wisdom, and an act of deep respect for the earth. Here, food is not bought, it is grown, transformed, and honored. There are no large supermarkets or long aisles filled with processed goods. Every ingredient that reaches the table has been touched by familiar hands, sown with patience, harvested with effort, or delicately gathered from the surrounding environment. Food here has a face, a name, and a story. It all begins with milk, a product that is almost sacred in these mountains. Each dawn, as the first thread of light filters through the windows of the stone houses, the cows, lifelong companions, are milked with care. The milk, warm and thick, is immediately carried into the kitchen or into the small fermentation room that each family preserves as if it were a sanctuary. There, under carefully maintained conditions, it is transformed into dense, rich-textured butter, deeply flavorful yogurt, or cheeses that slowly mature in the cool underground cellars of the homes. These dark, fresh spaces with wooden and stone shelves are true temples of taste. Cheeses like Sprins, the local Tilsit, or lesser-known but equally exquisite varieties are turned daily with gentle hands, as if they were living beings that breathe through time. But milk is just the beginning. Take flour, for instance, still made from grains grown on small family plots. The grains are milled in hydraulic mills that have operated for generations, powered by the mountain streams. These mills, with their squeaky wooden wheels, are symbols of human ingenuity in service of nature. From that flour, bread is baked. Round loaves, crusty on the outside, soft on the inside, cooked in stone ovens heated with hand-collected firewood. Every household has its own recipe, a family secret whispered across generations, and the smell of fresh bread is a common aroma that blends with that of the damp forest. Vegetables and greens don't arrive in refrigerated trucks. They are grown in communal gardens or in small handmade greenhouses built with recycled glass and local wood. There, nestled in layers of natural compost and silent prayer, grow the potatoes, carrots, onions, turnips, spinach, and cabbages that will nourish families through the long winters. In summer, children run between the green rows picking raspberries or gathering peas. In autumn, pumpkins are harvested and stored under the stairs. In winter, the shelves are filled with preserves, pickles, and jams, jars that are capsules of sunlight and time. Nothing goes to waste. In this artisanal food culture, every peel, every seed, every bone has a purpose. Broths are made from vegetable scraps and slowly roasted bones. Peels become compost. Leftovers feed the animals, who in turn nourish the earth with their presence. It is a closed, virtuous system where consumption is not a chain of destruction, but a cycle of renewal and gratitude. The dishes that emerge from these kitchens are humble in appearance but rich in flavor, history, and emotion. Root soups, made from potatoes, turnips, and carrots, slowly simmered in cast-iron pots, gain a deep taste from the mineral water of mountain streams. Herbal infusions made with hand-picked alpine plants, mint, chamomile, arnica flower, sage, not only warm the body but also heal and comfort the soul. Lamb stews, prepared with caramelized onions, wild garlic, and local wine, are a true luxury shared in community, especially during the large winter family gatherings. The kitchen is, without a doubt, the center of every home, the beating heart of the house. It is where conversations happen, where songs are sung, where skills are passed down, where bread is kneaded, and where joys and sorrows are shared. At every table there is more than just food, there is legacy. The recipes aren't written in cookbooks. They are passed on through imitation, through intuition, through the love in a grandmother's voice as she hands the spoon to her granddaughter and says, "When it smells like this, it's ready." The seasons also dictate the diet. In spring, the arrival of green shoots is celebrated with fresh salads and soft cheeses. In summer, abundance allows for the preparation of sweets, preserves, and pickles. In autumn, wild mushrooms, nuts, and berries take center stage. In winter, the menu becomes heartier: broths, savory pies, fondues, and raclette, not as tourist novelties, but as everyday meals that bring the family together around the warmth of the fire. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this way of eating is that it doesn't just nourish the body, it strengthens collective identity. Cooking, eating, preserving, and sharing become political, cultural, and emotional acts. They are ways of saying, "We are here. We are still alive. We remain faithful to what truly matters." The art of winter survival. When autumn says its quiet farewell and the first cold wind descends from the alpine peaks like a silent omen, everything in the village begins to change. Winter doesn't arrive abruptly, it suggests itself, settles in little by little, like a demanding guest who won't be leaving anytime soon. The temperatures drop day by day. Leaves fall from the branches. The sky turns gray. And then, on a morning like any other, the first snowflakes begin to fall, slow, steady, persistent, and the village sinks into a state of retreat that will last for months. Here, in the most artisanal village of Switzerland, winter is not just a season. It is a force, a sacred cycle of endurance, preparation, and transformation that tests both matter and spirit. It's not an exaggeration to say that the entire year revolves around its arrival. From the first thaw of spring to the warm days of August, every action is guided by one certainty: winter will come, and with it, the need to be ready. That's why, while the pastures are still green and the sun shines high, families work with almost ritual intensity. Firewood is cut not for hours but for entire days, stacked carefully under makeshift roofs to dry in the open air. Hay is gathered and stored in barns that smell of the field. Preserves are prepared: jars of blackberry jam, pickled pumpkins, dried fruits, cured meats, and tins of lard. Windows are inspected, cracks are sealed, stables are reinforced. Everything has a purpose. Everything is done with foresight. In these mountains, winter is never improvised. When it finally arrives, it covers everything in an unforgiving white blanket. The streets disappear. Fences, paths, even trail signs vanish under meters of snow. Leaving the village becomes impossible. Sometimes, from October until well into May, the village remains completely isolated from the outside world. No transportation. No visitors. Silence dominates the landscape like an invisible symphony. But there is no fear. Here, isolation is not a cause for alarm. It is, in fact, a return to the essential. Life turns inward. Homes become warm fortresses, self-contained worlds where cooking, working, mending, singing, and living happen all under the same roof. Fogged windows filter the little daylight that remains, while inside, the wood stoves crackle endlessly, filling the air with a sweet scent of resin and smoke. The days are measured in different activities than the rest of the year. There is no mowing or sewing now, only mending. Tools are fixed, knives sharpened, furniture restored. Men carve wood, spoons, chairs, toys, religious icons, while women spin wool, mend clothes, embroider tapestries, or prepare balms and ointments using dried herbs from the summer. These are slow days but rich with meaning. Winter is also a time for introspection, a time to look inward, to listen to others, to remember. Families gather around the fire. Warm infusions are prepared, slices of bread with butter are shared, and the elders tell stories of their grandparents, of legendary storms, of winters when the snow reached the rooftops. The children, wrapped in blankets, listen wide-eyed, knowing that one day they will be the ones telling those same stories. Despite the cold, the ice, and the prolonged darkness, this season is, paradoxically, one of the warmest in human terms. It is when the community spirit flourishes most strongly. No one is left alone. If a door doesn't open in the morning, a neighbor knocks gently to check that everything is okay. If someone runs out of firewood, another family shares a bundle without asking for anything in return. Preserves are exchanged like letters, I'll give you elderberry jam, you give me lentil soup. Solidarity is the only real currency. Here, networks are not digital, they are emotional. Connections aren't measured in likes but in daily gestures. Offering a bowl of hot broth to someone who's been shoveling snow for hours, sharing an old book, helping clear the roof of an elderly neighbor. In this environment, loneliness has no place, because adversity has taught that survival is not an individual act, but a collective one. Schools, when weather permits, continue to operate, though often classes take place in a single room with multiple grade levels together. Children arrive with faces red from the cold, bundled in coats that once belonged to their parents, and they spend the morning learning not only to read and write, but to live, to observe the weather, to interpret the signs of ice, to understand the language of animals. The hardest days are those when snow falls endlessly, or when the ice makes the rooftops groan at night. But even under those conditions, calm prevails. There is no panic, no complaints. There is action, there is patience, there is serenity. People trust in the knowledge accumulated over centuries, in the resilience of their homes, in the strength of the group. Every family knows they are alone, but also that they are not abandoned. And finally, many months later, when the sun begins to slowly melt the snowbanks, when the first green sprouts appear along the edges of the paths, when the water begins to run again through the streams, there is a kind of quiet jubilation, a shared relief, a silent celebration. Because each winter overcome is a test of character, a reaffirmation of identity. And although it repeats every year, it never ceases to be an achievement. Here, in the frozen heart of the Alps, surviving winter is not just about enduring the cold, it's about keeping alive the bonds, the crafts, the dignity, and the warmth of human connection. It's an ancient choreography performed with mastery, a silent poem written in ice, smoke, and firewood. The sacred bond with animals. In this remote mountain village, where the cold carves stone and life is built by calloused hands, animals are not seen as secondary or merely functional beings. They are silent protagonists of every story, an essential part of the village's emotional and vital fabric. Here, far from industrial rhythms and overcrowded farms, animals are treated with a reverence that seems to come from another time. They are companions, allies, and guardians of both sustenance and natural balance. Each cow has a name, not a generic one but a name chosen with affection, spoken with familiarity. Some are called Gerda, Latte, Mila, Bruni. And more than that, each one has a personality, a preferred routine, a gaze that the owners can read as if it were a language of its own. Those born and raised in these mountains swear their animals recognize them by voice, calm down with a stroke on the neck, and can tell when they're being spoken to with tenderness, or with haste. During the warm months of the year, the bond between human and animal deepens in the high alpine pastures, where cows, goats, and sheep are led as part of one of the most beautiful and symbolic traditions of Swiss rural life, the summer transhumance. This journey, lasting several days and crossing valleys and slopes, is a kind of pilgrimage in which families accompany their herds to the green meadows where the air is purer, the grass fresher, and the water more crystalline. There, the animals graze freely under the open sky, surrounded by wildflowers, butterflies, and the constant murmur of melting streams. It's an almost pastoral vision, where nature and human life coexist in perfect harmony. During those months, the daily contact between herders and animals becomes more intense. Songs are sung, words are spoken, silent observations are made. There are no barriers. The same mountain, the same sky, the same wind is shared. It's a communion that turns labor into companionship and care into ritual. When the cold announces its return and the landscape begins to turn golden, it's time to come back down to the valley. That's when the animals return to the barns, wooden structures that are not just physical shelters but intimate, protected, warm spaces. There, each animal has its place. The floors are covered with fresh straw, the walls are checked to prevent drafts, and food gathered during the summer is stored. Hay cut at the perfect stage, dried roots, mineral salts. In winter, the barn becomes a second home. The care animals receive during this time is meticulous, constant, almost maternal. They are brushed every morning, their health is checked, their diets adjusted to meet their needs. It's not about fulfilling a duty, It's about lovingly giving back what the animals provide each day. Because here, no one forgets that without them, life would be infinitely harder. Each species has its place, its role, its rhythm. The chickens, nervous and curious, offer fresh eggs almost daily, feeding on organic scraps and natural seeds. Their yolks are a vibrant orange, the result of a healthy, varied diet. The goats, agile and stubborn, produce a light, smooth milk, ideal for yogurts and cheeses that mature quickly. The sheep, patient and sturdy, give thick wool which is later transformed, through the slow work of spinning and weaving, into blankets, sweaters, scarves and hats that help endure the winter. And of course there are the cows. Majestic, calm, resilient. Their milk is considered white gold, rich and dense thanks to the alpine pastures rich in medicinal herbs. It forms the base of many local cheeses as well as butter, cream and even natural cosmetics. The sound of their bells, tuned over generations so as not to be jarring, becomes the village's soundtrack. But beyond utilitarian value, there is something deeply emotional in the relationship between the villagers and their animals. It is a relationship of reciprocity, of mutual recognition. Respect is the cornerstone of all raising practices. The animals are not forced, not exploited, not bred for maximum output. They are cared for with calm, with attention, and above all, with the conviction that the well-being of the animals is a direct reflection of human well-being. The death of an animal when it occurs does not go unnoticed. It is not treated as just another loss. It is honored, remembered, and appreciated. In some homes, a lock of fur is kept, an old bell, a photo alongside the animal. Because in this village, the life and death of every living being carry weight, meaning, and dignity. That is why many visitors are moved when they discover this way of life, because they realize that the relationship between humans and animals is not based on dominance, but on coexistence. On a circular logic where one receives but also gives back. Where milk, eggs, wool, or even the manure that fertilizes the fields are not considered products, but gifts. Here, among snowy mountains and ancient forests, animals are not resources. They are allies. They are silent teachers of patience, nobility, and unconditional dedication. And as such, they are respected, listened to, and cared for, not out of obligation but out of love. Because in the heart of this artisanal village, every form of life deserves to be lived with dignity. Craftsmanship, when every object tells a story. There is something deeply moving about walking through the streets of this village and feeling that every corner, every carved wooden detail, every lace-framed window, every smooth stone bench in front of a centuries-old home, has been touched by the human hand. A living hand. A hand that not only creates, but inherits, transforms, and honors. Because what truly sets this village apart from all the others nestled in the embrace of the Swiss Alps is not just its natural surroundings, its rustic cuisine, or its resilience to winter. It is its artisanal soul. Its quiet vocation for turning necessity into art, and art into identity. Here, every object is not just functional but symbolic. A knife is not just a tool, it's the legacy of a blacksmith grandfather forged in a firwood-fired forge, tempered with glacier water, and engraved with initials that mark lineage and pride. A wooden spoon is not merely a utensil, it's the result of hours spent studying the grain, of hands patiently carving without haste, following curves that seem inspired by the land's undulations. A tablecloth doesn't simply decorate the table. It tells a story, holds a song, remembers a harvest. In this village, craftsmanship is not a trade. It is a way of life. A wordless language, inherited and learned through loving repetition. From childhood, children watch their parents, grandparents, or uncles transform the simple into the beautiful. How a rock becomes a mortar, how a log becomes a stool, how thread becomes sculpture on fabric. And in doing so, they learn that the value of an object lies not in its price, but in its process, in the time it took to create, in the silence that wrapped it, in the story it holds. The local ceramics are a perfect example of this philosophy. Far from the glossy, uniform finishes of industrial products, the pieces here are purposefully imperfect. Some have slightly asymmetrical edges. Others retain the fingerprint that shaped the neck of a jug or the rim of a cup. The glazes don't come from labs but from minerals and ashes collected nearby, volcanic dust, iron from stones, gypsum from caves. The colors are soft, earthy, honest. Some bowls seem to contain the hue of dawn over the Alps. Plates evoke the texture of tree bark. Vessels reflect the cold gray of winter and the deep green of moss in spring. The looms are also silent protagonists of this culture. In many homes, the old wooden looms are still preserved, creaking as they are used, yet functioning with the same precision they had 2 centuries ago. There, women, and sometimes men, weave with hand-spun virgin wool. They craft blankets, table runners, scarves, curtains. But these are no ordinary weavings. Each one bears ancestral symbols, figures representing the mountains, the crescent moon, winter constellations, or the hooves of the deer that crossed the forest at dawn. To weave here is to speak with time. It is to trap memory between threads. The village's furniture follows the same logic of authenticity. There are no catalog pieces, no plastic, no cheap materials. Every chair, every table, every dresser is crafted from local woods. Oak, cherry, walnut, or larch. They are felled in the proper months of the year, when the sap runs low, and then dried slowly in the shade. Later, with old tools and steady hands, they are transformed into pieces that do more than serve. They tell stories. There are chairs carved with harvest scenes, beds with headboards etched with alpine flowers, wardrobes that open with 19th century hand-forged iron keys. And the most beautiful thing about this artisanal production is that it seeks neither scale, nor fame, nor globalization. Many of the artisans living here don't have websites. Some don't know how to use a cell phone. Others have heard of Instagram, the way one hears about something foreign. They sell through word of mouth. They sell at valley fairs. They sell when they feel inspired. Their production is limited, yes, but that's what makes it unique. Each piece is unrepeatable. Every commission, an intimate conversation between the maker and the one who requests it. So it's not about a creative economy. It's a soul economy, where what matters is not speed but durability. Not flashiness but authenticity. Here, making something by hand is not the exception, it's the norm. And the value lies in the invisible. In the silence that accompanies creation, in the patience that shapes it, in the love that gets absorbed into every line, every crack, every inch of worked material. In a world saturated with soulless objects, uniform mass-produced goods, this village endures. Not as a museum but as a way forward. A reminder that beauty doesn't need perfection, only intention. That art can be born of utility, care, and history. And that every handmade object is also a piece of life given to another with generosity. Because here, in this hidden community folded into the mountains, every knife, every cup, every woven cloth, is also a love letter to the land that gives them everything. Celebrations, living rituals in the heart of winter. Despite the isolation, or perhaps because of it, social life in the village blooms vibrantly on special dates. During the winter solstice, for instance, large bonfires are lit in the snow, and children go from house to house singing traditional songs. Each season has its ritual. In spring the fields are blessed, in summer the harvest is celebrated, and in autumn comes the legendary Alpapfart, when the livestock descends from the heights adorned with flowers, colorful ribbons, and giant bells. These festivities are not just moments of leisure, they are cultural anchors that reinforce collective identity. Gathering the entire community around a fire, sharing a traditional dish, listening to elders tell stories, all of this keeps a culture alive that is not written in books but lived every single day. Modern challenges, youth, technology, and the dilemma of the future. Even with all its beauty, life here is not easy. Many young people leave in search of opportunities in the cities. Schools are far away, hospitals even farther. Internet access is limited, and access to modern goods is restricted. This gradual migration presents a dilemma. How can a culture be preserved if there's no one left to carry it forward? However, some children of the village are beginning to return, bringing with them new ideas, technical knowledge, and a renewed passion for their roots. Some have created online cooperatives to sell local products. Others organize sustainable tourism retreats or teach traditional crafts. There is hope. A new generation that combines the past with the present without betraying either. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe by hitting the notification bell so you won't miss more videos like this one. We'll see you next time.